This is a review of Judgement at Nuremberg. I knew this was going to be a heavy film. At a 3 hours running time, it's a courtroom drama. I really had to commit and click to this one, and I'm glad I did. And the opening scene depicts the central character, who's the judge of the Nuremberg trials, played by Spencer Tracy. We are set just a few years after the end of World War II, and so Nuremberg has been absolutely pounded and bombarded, and you can see kind of in the background the Germans trying to rebuild their lives. It's kind of interesting to see the judge driving through the city. And just a reminder, this is a city that was a kind of a flagship city for Hitler, where he held a lot of the demonstrations. It's here that the 4 judges, German judges, would be tried for upholding the laws of the Third Reich and the socialist movement that swept the country since 1933. You realize you're in for a historical or a history lesson, and not just an entertaining film. It's actually a fictional tale, though, of the judgment of 12 judges that did take place. And so it's not 100% true. What makes this film interesting is that the judge has to try and see things through the judge's eyes and not just assume they are guilty. As each character takes a stand to testify, we are embroiled in a series of set pieces by actors such as Montgomery Clift and Judy Garland. What makes this film even more compelling, and I admit the reason I came about this film was because I had recently watched and reviewed A Place in the Sun. I was really astounded by Monty Clift's performance, so understated for the time, so real. I then watched a documentary about him, and I heard about the car accident which occurred in around 1956. At the height of his fame, his car spiraled out of control after leaving a party at Liz Taylor's house, and he hit a lamppost, and the scenes were really indescribable. It's really quite horrifying. His face was unrecognizable. It's a heartbreaking accident that changed the course of his career. As an actor in the early 60s, he becomes a sort of depleted shadow of his former self. He went as far as removing all the mirrors in his home because he couldn't look at himself anymore. One side of his face was totally reconstructed. All this made his presence in the judgment at Nuremberg even more appealing and more interesting. Was he still able to act? Was he still a star? Anyway, Stanley Kramer, who is the director, was famous for making Hollywood's most famous message films, a liberal movie icon. His casting of Judgment at Nuremberg was not a usual course of events. We have Spencer Tracy, Burt Lancaster, Richard Widmark, Maximilian Schell, Marlene Dietrich, Judy Garland, William Shatner, and Monty Clift. Apparently, there was not enough money to pay for wages to any of the actors, and particularly Monty Clift himself, who offered to act for free. So Monty plays Rudolf Peterson, a baker's son, who gets into a fight with the SS along with his brothers, and he is sent to be sterilized. And the judge on the stand in the judgment at Nuremberg is the man who signed the warrant. There is an energy even before Monty is present. Once the door opens, we see a nervous character who looks so real, so haunted. For the first time in the film, you think you are actually there. He sits and answers the question one at a time, defensive, hands shaking, struggling to concentrate. Is this acting, or is this just how Monty was at the time? He was mixing a lot of drugs and alcohol, apparently. His eyes seem to be that of someone intoxicated. He mumbles his words and fidgets, making you feel uncomfortable, but also makes the character extremely real. It's hard to understand what's going on here, with the knowledge of his past, a supreme talent who has lost his way and now has to work for free. But he's pulling off an incredible performance. Does he know it, or is he blagging it? Did Stanley cobble together the best takes of a 2-day shoot for a 7-minute scene and make something of it? No matter what, got Monty a nomination for an Academy Award for the Best Supporting Actor, and the internet is alive with praise for what many call the best acting they have ever seen. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the scene. Have you seen it? And if you have, please write your comments below. Let's move on to Burt Lancaster. He plays the lead German judge, Dr. Ernst Janning. He has absolutely no words until the end of the film, and apparently he was asked to play the lead prosecutor, who was eventually played by Richard Widmark, who does an amazing performance. But this would have meant learning a lot of lines. I find it amusing that he managed to get his paycheck for $750,000 for what was a role with hardly any lines. He must have a very clever agent. Apparently Monty was offered the role, but surely this would have been a terrible idea. I think it would have been either one of the most incredible performances anyone had ever played, or would it have just taken 2 to 3 years to make the whole film while he fumbled around to learn his lines. But the star of the show really is the Austrian Maximilian Schell, who plays Hans Rolf, the defense attorney. He really is incredible. The amount of bias against the judges is so high, you think it's going to be a one-horse race. But Hans Rolf levels the playing field after every testimony. Not only is he cleverly blocking everything the prosecutor throws at him, he is emotionally playing games with the witnesses, getting them to rethink their answers and look like fools. This is all the work of great script writing and Maximilian Schell, who eventually goes on to win the Best Oscar for actor in a leading role. Please watch his acceptance speech. I'll add it to the description. Such a composed and generous speech. It reminds me of why the Oscars is required. It allows people to dream, and even someone as far away as Austria can bring the house down, can win an Oscar. So the acting is a gift in this film. It's brimming with talent and delivers at every corner. Judy Garland's career was also in somewhat a precarious position at the time, and just like Monty Clift, she was cast to bring a reality to the role. She plays a simple, small-town girl who had an affair with a Jewish man almost 50 years her senior. I'll be honest, I had no idea this was Judy Garland until I checked IMDb later on. The directing overall is very clever. How do you keep people glued to a courtroom drama for 3 hours? Stanley uses fast zooms, which we call crash zooms, for impact. The sets are well thought out, which means every witness enters from behind and walks past the judges who are on trial as they leave. It's a very clever way to create tension. Interspersed between the courtroom drama, we have interesting scenes out and about in Nuremberg. Old traditions never die hard. The beer halls are alive and well, and Americans partake in more than one drinking session, often commending the quality of the beer. It's this clever balance throughout the film that I found really interesting. The horror is made so apparent in the showing of the video footage collected from the concentration camps. It's horrifying, and you see things even documentaries wouldn't show you today. The film does balance itself, and this is done through the eyes of Spencer Tracy, the judge Don Haywood, and his conversations with the locals, and in particular, Marlene Dietrich. Here he finds a way to see everything through the eyes of the Germans. How could this happen? How could people let this happen? Is every German guilty? He struggles with these questions a lot, and I think we do still to this day. The mystery remains of how one country could shed so much brutality on its neighbours, and maybe this is the question the film can never answer. We will always be in the perpetual ignorance or blindness to how this could have happened. This is a film that addresses a shocking time in history, and maybe this is a film that, rather than relishes in the action and victory, finds itself asking the philosophical question that needs to be asked if we are ever to really understand. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this film. When did you watch it, and how did it affect you? Emmett Sullivan, who has recently done a video on our channel about The Zone of Interest, he will be having a chat with me soon about this film, and I hope you can catch that. I'll be uploading that in the next week or so. Please keep your eyes peeled on our channel and subscribe. So much for listening. As always, if you have any ideas for any more films to review, please let me know.